Welcome once again. Kenyans yesterday voted in some areas where polls had been postponed because of mix-up in ballot papers. Polling stations opened in Mombasa County in the coast region and Kakamega in the west, where voters voted for governors in the hotly contested elections. The voters will also be electing MPs for 4 constituencies and 2 assembly representatives.
The elections were previously rescheduled for the 23rd of August, but were postponed after what electoral body chairperson said was intimidation and harassment of poll officials. Now joining us this morning is Raquel Muigai. She's a reporter for Africa Uncensored in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you so much for joining us, Raquel.
Thank you.
Give us an overview of the elections that happened in the 4 different counties yesterday. What was the outcome like? Were you impressed by what happened? Give us your own perspective to the elections.
Yeah. Good morning to you. It's been comparing to how the general election was, the 9th August polls, and also just looking at the mini polls that were conducted yesterday. Nothing much was different because we still recorded a low voter turnout. Looking at some of the numbers that we had in some of these polling stations, it was actually quite discouraging, despite even the government mentioning that these particular areas that were conducting the mini polls will be having public holiday. You would expect that people will turn out and cast their vote. However, that was not the case, and therefore low voter turnout was recorded in a number of polling stations within these particular areas. There are also claims of voter bribery, especially in Mombasa County, where a number of cases were recorded here and there, but it's something that will be under investigation. But what we can say, so far so good, because at the end of the day, as much as not everyone really turned out to participate in their right, at least it was peaceful. People did come out and voted, did come out to vote, and continued with their normal businesses. Because looking at how the August 9th polls were, out of the 22 million registered voters, only 14 million actually turned out to cast their votes. So the low voter turnout, the voter apathy still continues even with this particular mini polls.
Okay, well, we understand Raila Odinga has filed to challenge the election result, and a Metro report say that the IEBC servers were breached by, allegedly 3 Venezuelans who landed in Kenya 2 weeks before the election, and that they were not contracted by the Electoral Commission. But they, of course, have ascertained, or rather have claimed, that they had to be in Kenya. Is there any information as to how those foreigners got access to the IEBC server?
So basically, this particular foreigners were arrested in July 21st. And according to a forensic analysis that has been brought forth to the limelight by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, is that these 3 Venezuelans actually had access to the IEBC servers since March 2022. Upon their arrest, the Electoral Commissioner Chair Wafula Chebukati came out and stated that these 3 were actually part of the company that had been contracted to provide the electoral management technology system. And therefore, they were a crucial part in the electoral system. Remember that the Independent and Electoral Boundaries Commission had contracted Smartmatic International to provide for voter identification and even results transmission of the August 9th elections. And therefore, the chair, at the time of the arrest of these 3 foreigners, insisted that actually the servers are impenetrable, they're secure, and only those who have permission or authorization will actually access the servers. However, that has not been the case based on the forensic analysis that has been given, because what the DCI states is that these foreigners will actually access the servers remotely, and they did have access of these servers since March 2022, and therefore that brings to the fore the question of credibility of this particular elections and whether or not the servers were secure or not. They actually state, that is the Directorate of Criminal Investigation states, that the 3 Venezuelans, or one of them actually had access to the point of rather manipulating or altering the entire IEBC server system. If you look at some of the issues that have been brought forth by the Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate Raila Odinga, who has now petitioned the electoral result, he says that these particular foreigners were actually being used to intercept or to rig him out and rig out the elections. And he says that the Form 34 sees which is a summation of the presidential results from the 290 constituencies results that have been posted in the Form 34Bs. He said that the Form 34Cs were intercepted, they were altered, and then re-uploaded back to the system that is at the national server, which could now be accessed at the National Tallying Center. And therefore, the calculations were not correct, and there's a lot that seems to be going on. An independent forensic analysis has also been done by the East Africa data handlers, and also says the same, that the IEBC servers were not secure, that the forms were actually altered, and therefore these are some of the things that the court will have to look at, and it's something that the petitioners will actually have to prove. Also, looking at it from the IEBC side, they will also have to prove that their systems are actually safe and their servers were accessed by those who actually had the permission. So until this point, investigations are still continuing. We're still not sure how exactly these 3 Venezuelans or other foreigners, because it's not just the 3 who the country knows about. The forensic analysis states that there are others who actually had access, and they are not in any way election officials, a majority of them being foreigners and only 2 officials in the country. And therefore that brings to question a lot about the credibility of the elections and whether IEBC really catered or really looked into the servers. And therefore we'll be waiting to see how this stands out at the Supreme Court.
And we know that the hearing on the petition filed by Odinga will begin today, and the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, Ms. Ann Amadi, has said 4 lawyers from each party will be allowed in the pre-trial session. Now, we know that all of this drama is going on. Let's talk about how the people of Kenya feel towards the IEBC and this result. You know, I'm sure you must have heard conversations. What's the general mood in Kenya like? What are the polls saying, the social polls? Are people leaning more in favor of Ruto or Raila? And how do they feel about the IEBC, especially as it's come under major attacks this season?
One thing is that this election year has been very different. And unlike the previous years, Kenyans seem to have been bored to death about this particular elections, because people came out to vote and moved on with their lives as if it never actually happened. But the general feel is that once Kenyans have already done their particular or have played their role in this particular elections, what is left is for the Supreme Court to decide, and therefore the country will follow. So at this point, we clearly cannot say whether, because there is a portion of Kenyans who feel that Raila Odinga did deserve this win, at least trying 5 times, this being the 5th time, and being backed by the state, it appeared that he would win. So there's that general feeling. But there's also the feeling that the deputy president, or now the president-elect, William Ruto, actually won. So at this particular point, not so much engagement with the political debate that is ongoing, but what remains is that the petitioners will actually have to prove in court that there were irregularities that were in this particular election, that and also prove where exactly did IEBC fail in doing its mandate, and also prove how exactly is it that whether if these irregularities were not there, then what would have been the difference in the numbers? If then that proves to be something that the court will look at and it is in their favor, then the court might order a rerun or even a retally of the votes. But if that doesn't happen, then the court upholds the announcement made by the Electoral Commission. But at this point, everything seems to have gone back to normal, something that a lot of people did not really look or think that it would happen. There was this debate, or rather fear, that we will go back to 2007, where there are a lot of chaos, or probably there will be some sort of violence sparks around certain areas of the country. But actually, this did not happen even after the presidential announcement was made. And therefore, it does show that probably the electorate has actually matured from the last election. And it's more of, let's now look at how we can forge forward, given the high cost of living and everything that has been going on, moving on from the COVID-19 year, the 2020, 2021, and how hard it has been. Therefore, what really matters is, can we really put food on the table?
Well, one thing that you mentioned, was Raila Odinga being backed by, the incumbent and the government, basically. And so let's get into that. The outgoing president, Uhuru Kenyatta, is yet to speak or even congratulate his deputy, William Ruto, who, has been declared winner of the election by the IEBC. What does anyone make of this, action or this silence?
There has been a lot of debate, truly, on why President Uhuru Kenyatta actually has been silent all along. But in the run-up to the elections, we did see there was some sort of a broken romance between him and his deputy president, who's now the president-elect William Ruto, over claims that clearly have not been very clear, or things that have not been clear on why exactly this happened, why this discord. Because since 2013, 2017, they have been close. They gave the country this bromance that they were good buddies, just apart from being political friends, but they were really close, having garnered support and a support majority from the country. And therefore, it is still unclear where hell broke loose for both of them. A lot of claims being made here and there, but nothing that can be substantiated where President Uhuru Kenyatta will come out and say that this happened because of this, of A, B, and C. And therefore, President Uhuru Kenyatta's silence at this point raises a lot of questions on why this will be happening. On one end of the divide, we do see a lot of people talking about the fact that he did probably expect that Raila Odinga will win, having backed him up, and therefore will probably serve as an embarrassment now that William Ruto has won, or a lot of statements being thrown here and there. But at this particular point, what we can do is just speculate until the point he gets to speak, because what is now awaited is the Supreme Court verdict, which should be made on September 5th to decide where this country goes. Maybe then he will break the silence and probably say something after that particular verdict.
Well, September 5th is just around the corner. Thank you very much, Raquel Migai, for joining us this morning. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.